So similar to popular superheroes like Spider-Man and Batman, the no-kill attitude Mirai has is definitely a very noble and idealistic viewpoint on society that most people, generally fall in that camp. But when push comes to shove, if you were a superhero or you were put in a life or death situation, would you take a life to save others? And there's no universally agreed opinion, but generally no killing. That's why the death penalty and things like that aren't a part of most societies these days. And depending on who you are, you're obviously going to fall into a different camp. But what Mirai is saying, and the idea of not wanting to rip his own happiness away, valuing his upbringing, and very much portraying himself like a Peter Parker or even a Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne, he could save far more lives if he killed so many different villains like the Joker, but he doesn't. Peter Parker kind of gets a bit better in terms of his situations because he generally works out a bit better, but still, there's definitely arguments to be made that there's certain villains in those series that you shouldn't lock away. They escape, they cause more death, they cause more destruction, but they're the heroes that they'll beat the bloody shit out of you, but they're not going to take your life to do so. So Mirai is kind of like ideals of he's not going to taint himself, he's not going to put himself lower than a cockroach. Well, it's easy to sit back and say, oh, this is something that's unrealistic. This is the tried and true story mechanic that superhero stories have been using forever and ever. And just even coming out of No Way Home myself, that's pretty much the exact same mentality there. I personally disagree with Mirai, if anyone cares to know. Despite defending his mindset, I personally think Metropoliman deserves to die. I don't think, because the arrow would only last for 30 days, he would very much end up escaping or something like that. But I completely understand and completely agree that Mirai shouldn't have to kill him, given the fact that he never wanted to be a part of this battle royale that Metropoliman has begun. Had Metropoliman not done what he did, they wouldn't have to kill each other. There very well could be a different way of figuring out who's most worthy of being God. And I've said this since very early on. And if anyone we've seen, Mirai is without doubt the most noble to become God, given the fact that he doesn't want the power, given that he's not trying to kill people to get there. And that's honestly what you would probably wish to see if someone did have the ability to rule over you like you are a bunch of ants. Now, personally, I thought Mirai was quite clever in this episode, even though I do think he should have pulled the trigger, while completely understanding why he didn't all at the same time. It never really crossed my mind that using a white arrow to kill the virus was an option. I knew something big brain had to have happened. There's no way that Mirai would die at the top of that tower. He has to make it to the end. Metropoliman, Mikado, characters like them, they don't have to make it to the end, but still, there's no way they're going to let off a virus, right? There's just no way that that type of plague is going to be released. But I also didn't see him getting stabbed by the injections and things like that. So when it came to holding on to her, because at that point she can't escape the arrow, and then also by killing the virus before it was released, it's one of the most clever things that you could probably do, and was without doubt the biggest of brain moves. Even Mikado had no solution there, because killing her wasn't an option when she could release more of that virus. It was definitely an interesting kind of situation when I was watching Mirai pretty much sit there contemplating what to do, because he has the red arrow from Mikado pretty much telling him to kill her, right? Because that is what Mikado believes, and I was right there with him. I was like, at this point, if there's ever going to be a moment where he's going to kill, it's going to be in this situation, even if it is due to the influence of the red arrow. But at the same time, the fact that he just couldn't do it, and the fact that he recognized that he almost got his love killed because she was going to defend when she launched those kind of it almost reminded me of Freddy Krueger, but with syringes in terms of the virus. And the fact that Hajime, of all characters, not only sacrificed his life to save her, but killed her. This man not only cut off arms of the first dude with that giant machine gun, also killed her. And that's just his character, that he doesn't want to see people dead and would rather see certain characters get locked up and basically serve their time and contemplate what they've done. And even though I personally disagree, I do believe that there are certain people that are beyond irredeemable and that we shouldn't help them. But that's part of society that has there's no reason that people can't believe in differently, and it's wrong, in my opinion, to force a superhero or a character like Mirai to do the things that you think you would do push came to shove, right? And that's what I really like about that situation, and really why I've always loved Mikado's character in general, because it's very different to what Mirai believes, but they both believe in a similar future, just one for the death penalty and one without it. I do think Metropoliman's gonna die. I don't think Mirai will do it. I'm just not sure how it's going to happen, because when it comes to Mikado, right, it'd be easy for me to say, oh, he's going to shoot Metropoliman when he's fumbling around or something like that. He doesn't have the energy to pull the trigger, but I do think he's going to be involved somehow with the death. Maybe it won't necessarily be that he commands someone like Mirai to kill Metropoliman. Maybe he'll command him to do something and that will let him fire one last shot at something, maybe a handgun, I don't know. Either way, I do think we're reaching the end of the Metropoliman arc, and even though for a while I was thinking maybe he would get to the end of the series, at this point I don't see how his story could continue past maybe an episode or two. Because the last person who was on his side literally ran away and had no willingness to die for Metropoliman, which was a shock. I thought the kid was going to be the craziest of them all. Instead, he was just a frail boy who just wanted to go home. So it feels like we're reaching his end, and if that is the case, where do you go from here, right? Because he's the perfect antagonist for Platinum End, but what do you do afterwards? Is it more of, rather than just it being more of a battle royale, running away from people who are trying to kill you, not wanting to kill yourself, is it going to be different? Because I think there's some possibilities that the idea of who gets to become God, not having it necessarily be who kills who, that could really be an interesting core too, because this is a 24 episode anime, right? So that actually has me quite excited. I may disagree with Mirai completely, but I mean, I disagree with a lot of superheroes despite loving the superhero stories in general, right? So that's what I like about this episode, despite there being some infuriating elements for me on a personal level, like a girl trying to be a bioterrorist, or even Metropoliman, two characters who are irredeemable, they shouldn't be locked away, they deserve the death penalty in my opinion. At the same time, it's, you shouldn't force a kid who was literally suicidal at the beginning of the show to force his own ideals away. He was willing to die for 10,000 people, but at the same time, he's not willing to take a life to do so, right? And it's an interesting concept. It's always going to be a hot topic no matter what. I just think it's a little unfair when it comes to the anime community, treating Mirai like we haven't seen this archetype before. Obviously, this archetype's different because of the kind of like battle rail, god candidate situation. But all the popular superhero movies that people will praise on one of their tweets, but then they'll criticize Mirai on the next one. It's just an interesting concept. I find it's a little hypocritical in my opinion, but Reddit is what it is, I guess. I mean, it's interesting, right? Because we're definitely building up to both Mikaido and Metropoliman probably dying. Mikaido for sure is dying. Metropoliman could get out of it, but it'll be interesting to see because I think, honestly, should they commit to killing both of those characters, where would Mirai's persona go? Would he decide to eventually start killing? Would he decide to stick true to how he believes God should be? And if so, will that make him an even worthier candidate than all the other psychos who, as soon as they got a white arrow to kill, basically a loaded gun that if you look at someone they're dead, decide not to use it this entire time? I mean, truthfully, if I'm Big God up in the sky and I see a boy who refused to use a white arrow even once, I mean, he might very well be getting that kind of like package of godness without even trying all too hard. And honestly, the people who are most deserving of power are typically the ones who want it the least, and that makes their life a living hell. But good episode. Definitely enrages you, but it does so intelligently, because that's exactly what this type of situation should do, especially when you have different opinions on what it means for human life to exist. But I like that type of stuff myself. But of course, as always, let me know your thoughts, feelings down below, theories if you have any. If you don't know the source material, leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.